In a world accelerating faster than ever, true leaders rise, not by chance, but by choice. Welcome to the Unshakable Voice, where leaders are forged, performers are built, and mindsets are turned from fragile to unshakable. Be ready to unlock high-performance habits and be ready to master the art of complexity. Please welcome the leadership strategist, high-performance coach, a leader in innovation, and your host for the show, Dr. Nigel Smart.
Well, welcome. Welcome to the Unshakable Voice podcast. And today we're talking about navigating change in a world that's rapidly changing and in a world that is evolving in global terms. Today's episode is really unique. I'm so happy to be able to discuss this with you all today. We're activating our inner strength to access higher levels of cognitive and creative output. What are the effects going here with the marriage of our faith and our cognitive neuroscience sort of progression? What are the things? How is that progressing? What is the effect of that? And what is the likely outcome in terms of how we will see things in terms of real products, real influences in our lives, and also in the things that we're trying to do in industry. So today, I am absolutely thrilled. I've got one of my mentors, Mike Schindler, the VUCA MAX, together with another friend, Chris Nolan. They came up with It's VUCA, the movie, and the courses, which is taking the evolving world that we're all experiencing, what the effect of AI is, how things are progressing. Mike is also a podcaster himself. He's been a CEO of Operation Military Family. He's a father, a husband, and a transformational expert for Fortune 500 companies globally. So I'd like to introduce Mike to our audience. Mike, welcome to the Unshakable Voice podcast.
Well, Nigel, it's truly an honor to be here. Thank you for having me. This is going to be an exciting topic. I know you and I have talked often about this, and I think I joke with you that, this is God, grit, and growth moments, right? Like the world is on fire, to reiterate what you just said, like the world's on fire. We all feel it, the pace of uncertainty that's going, the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, all that is rapidly changing. And so I'm excited to dive into this topic with you because I think you and I will discover that the old styles or the old methods of leadership can't survive these times. They just can't. Right.
And the world's on fire. The pace of change right now is exponential. I was hearing this week again about the changes that are coming. That 3 times what we were predicting 6 months ago. So in your opinion, what are the things that are going to be the major pinch points or the major levers that are gonna that we're gonna have to pull as human beings to actually weather this, take advantage of these massive changes, but also come out the other side so that we're productive, we don't feel alienated, we don't feel cast off, like so many commentators would have you believe right now that we have no future. I don't believe that, and I don't believe that you believe that either. So give me some wisdom, give me some of your thoughts and your wisdom, and I'm sure the audience is this is going to be so valuable to try and calm down the euphoria and the panic that's sort of progressing and precessing right now through our society.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we first have to address, what people are experiencing, right? And some of the data that is out there. I think in 2025, up through November, I think there's been, 1.2 million layoffs. I mean, so I think people in the audience are feeling it. They're feeling the VUCA, they're feeling the negative side of VUCA. And I think they are starting to feel replaced. I think the key, though, is And I'm with you. There is massive opportunity. I do believe that there's going to be more wealth created in the next decade. It's just that we have to stop operating at a human 1.0 level.
Right.
And what I mean by that is, human 1.0, if you look at that, that's the reactive mode. That's the survivor mode. That's the burnt out mode. That's the I don't know what to do, deer in headlights mode. And we really have to elevate ourselves to like a human 10.0, which is being calm, future ready when we get hit with the storms in our life. I think we have to, one of the things that I do is I say, pause. What a gift. Like,
Right.
I am now experiencing something that I've not experienced before. And my option is to either be reactive or responsive. And the key truly is being adaptable. Like we say, flipping the script in VUCA, right?
Mhm.
That's the A, is adaptable. So we've got to set a new vision for our life. We have to understand that the marketplace is changing rapidly, right? And
Right.
in that change, we've got to gain clarity. And the clarity starts with, who am I? And if I'm human 1.0, being reactive, stressed out, burnt out, not knowing what to do, that's where we say, okay, that's the awareness stage. Okay. Now we have to acknowledge that that's where we're at. And now we have to put an action plan on elevating to the next level, going from human 1.0 to human 2.0. And that's what's going to help people move in this rapidly changing time.
Right. As you know, one of the things that really fuels me is performance. I'm a high performance crazy. And
Yep.
one of the things I'm looking for all the time is the next effect or the next order of technology, the next effect technology, and how that is affecting our human systems, the things that as you say, that traditionally we've relied upon and been very good at. But how is the adoption and incorporation, what I've called the cooperative intelligence, how is that AI shaping things in terms of our human behavior and the power dynamics that goes with that? And therefore, subsequent to that, or spinning off that, how is that impacting the types of decision flows over what we would have done traditionally before this sort of incursion into our world?
Yeah. So let me take the second one first. And I would say that those who are adopting AI, looking at AI going not as a replacement, but as, I really think there's going to be two people or two sides of this coin, Nigel. One is going to be people that say, listen, I don't know anything about it. I want to avoid it. And they will be replaced. And then there will be the second person who says, no, this is here. It's massive. This is the biggest revolution we've seen. I know we all say that the internet, but this AI is changing every marketplace. I think the life cycle of any job I've seen now is roughly 2.5 years, right? So what's going to happen is people are they're going to decide, I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to learn it. I'm going to understand that it can help me exponentially grow, and I can augment its capabilities. And what's going to be important is the human still brings several very important things to the equation where AI will never be able to replace. And that is discernment. Okay. That is market expertise, meaning the book knowledge might say this, but because we address and we have been involved with other humans, we know that, that in theory could work, but that in practicality won't. Right. And so I think for those of us that are over 40, we have the ability to discern. The younger generation is going to have to learn that. So I think mentorship is going to be key moving forward, 100% for this next generation. Because it's going to be the experience, the discernment, and the character of the user of AI that is going to change the marketplace. So I think that's the important thing that we have to grab onto is embrace AI. That will help us elevate. Like I use AI today, Nigel, which I think you do too, which is I use it as my war room. Before, back in the day, I'd have 5 or 6 of my team members sitting in a room for a day, and we'd just be murder boarding. That's a military term, murder boarding, but war rooming an idea and coming up with what are the best ideas? What are the best? Let's go two or three, let's go 2 or 3 deep on this idea.
Mhm.
And now I can do that in moments, right? And I
Yes,
say
you can.
moments, what used to take me 8 hours might take me 3 now because I
Mhm.
use AI. I know how to prompt it. And that's what people need to really do, is use AI as like your force multiplier.
And I think you could almost interview yourself. One of the things that I've done, and again,
Mhm.
I have you or your lead to some extent to thank for that, but I created a Nigel clone, and so I can have a
Yeah.
conversation with myself through a clone, and it's illuminating because, bright or not as I may be, my recall isn't infinite, and the recall on the things that this clone of me now has is infinite, and it's infinitely quick in terms of the way it responds. And so I can think of an idea and I think, oh, I wonder what I was thinking there. This thing can give me a response within seconds.
Yeah.
And I sit down and I think, well, gee, that's pretty clever. I need to think of that, or I'd forgotten about that. And being decision makers and analysts, I think the analytical side of it is it's showing us, look, I'm so much better at being an analyst than you are, Nigel, now.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so it almost behooves us, Mike, to be more anticipatory in terms of the things that we don't know. And to quote you and conversations with you and Chris, we need to develop that intuitive side of us, and that
That's
then
right.
is that higher cognitive piece that we've talked about and you talk about at great length. Tell me
For
a
sure.
little bit. I would say, tell me a little bit about, just recently there's been a slew of things on in the podcast circuit about AI and the essentially Armageddon, if you like, that this thing,
Mhm.
people are predicting that in 2 years, certainly 3, that basically the thing's taken over. And there's this concern with that legislation globally that this thing could get completely out of control. One of the things I was itching to ask you, because I know you're a man of faith, and I am
Mhm.
myself spiritual in my own way, but to what extent do you think our faith in relation to how this thing is being built or is evolving going forward, how much do you think that is, for want of a better way of describing it, a safeguard or provide some guardrails for us when we consider what I just mentioned a few minutes ago about the intuitive piece, activating that higher cognitive thing, which will segues you nicely into being able to describe that side for our listeners. But
Yeah.
to what
So,
extent does the faith play into that, Mike?
well, I think it's going to expose those who have little faith, right? I think, scripture says, Christ essentially, he admonished those of little faith, right? And so we talk about, faith as a mustard seed, not like a mustard seed, but as a mustard seed, right? Not the size of a mustard seed, but as a mustard seed. And I think people misinterpret that piece. Little faith is faith that is not rooted or grounded, right? So people panic. And I think I've heard really kind of two sides of this coin. Number one is, AI is great is because it's getting people used to talking to what appears to be something omniscient. Okay. Now there is a danger in that they could use AI as like, wow, AI is replacing God. Okay, if they're not careful. The other side of that is no, it gets you so used to talking to something omniscient that you realize this is just a gateway, and then I need to explore and go deeper with my relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, what I love about AI is that I have trained a bot, right, in the methodologies of Greek and Hebrew, and I'm able to unpack scripture now like I've never been able to do before.
Uh-huh.
And that for me has made my faith deeper, more rooted, like a mustard seed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that when the headwinds hit, and they will hit, because
Mm-hmm.
people will have a decision to make, is are you going to believe in man's laws or God's laws? And I think AI is going to expose that in many ways.
Do you think it's going to have I was going to say, do you think it'll have like an existential crisis, AI, because it won't be able to deal with the fact that these human agency types have faith, and they're not going. It's not going to get its sort of existential head around that.
Maybe I don't know where it's evolving to, right? I mean, we there's people on both sides of this that are saying we need to pay attention, and I do agree with that. I think we do need to pay attention. The reality is, and my hope is, or at least, and maybe this could be my ignorance too, Nigel, is, if it gets too crazy and out of hand, I still have the opportunity to unplug, right? I don't have to seek guidance or wisdom from AI. I don't have to interact with it. People have said, well, what if it requires you to use payment? You know what? I'll create a clan of people that will trade rocks and a barter system, I mean, so could it turn into the Terminator? And if you go back and look at that movie that was made in 1984, I think it was about this era that the Terminator showed up, like 2024 or something like that, which is crazy, or 2030 or something. And so, I look at Hollywood, and my background, having been a part of several movies, is I say, if you really want to know where the world can go, pay attention to science fiction. And we see both protopia, utopia, and dystopia and so I think those are really our options. Do I think we're going to be utopia? I don't. Simply because we're still human and we're flawed. But do I think there's protopia? Do I think there's kind of a Star Trek availability on the planet? I do see that, right? I really do see that. Do I see dystopia? I don't. I still think there's too many good people in the world that are going to say, yeah, we're not going to accept that way of life. We're not going to do the Hunger Games, right? So I'm still very hopeful. Some people could challenge me on that, but again, it goes back to my faith, which is strongly rooted that I'm here for this time, and I'm going to show up for this time and be the true mirror of God's love, and that's going to be my job. And hopefully, I'm a great reflection of it.
And as we move to stimulate this our higher cognitive capabilities. How do you see the marriage of that with your faith? I mean, in terms of, do you see it aiding and abetting your faith, or as you say,
Yeah, I think it gives me emotional regulation. For sure, it does. Like if I'm going through a stressful moment, I can go into one of the box and say, "This is what I'm dealing with." I'm working to flip the script. I'm working to get above the line, and we can talk about that in just a moment. But I will ask him to say, Mike, I get it, but here's scripture that can help you re-anchor yourself. And that, to me, some should say, well, you could call your pastor. Well, not all pastors are available, right? Or you can call a friend, or you can seek God. And the first is to seek God, which I do, and I use scripture, or I use the tool to remind me, oh yeah, I've got the best leadership book available to me, right next to me.
Right.
And it encourages me to go deeper there. Right. So I think it can definitely aid and abet, and people should take that. It really is. Faith is I think faith is like a neurological, it's a neurobiological advantage if we really see it that way, that we can, faith will help us understand who we are, right? So we're in his image, and the tool AI can remind us who we are. Does it make sense?
It does. And one of the things I was listening to this week was, there was the faith angle piece, if I can call it that for a moment, the spiritual side. There's some evidence to show now that actually it improves our neuroplasticity. Well, I mean, if that's the case, that's phenomenal, because then again, that anchors into what I was just sort of prompting you about, which is, we want these higher cognitive capabilities, because that's what our criticality of thinking and our creative piece is. And as I tell people when I'm doing my pitch for coaching with companies, I'll say, How many brands have you come up with?
Mm-hmm.
And what's your line of thinking? And are you considering this? Because if you're not considering this, there's a whole universe of possibilities there that you're not even considering.
Yeah.
Which is folly.
Yeah.
If you follow what we know now, especially now we've got this other capability, which we can use in conjunction with this, provided we go higher.
Yeah, but that's the key. Again, we have to elevate, right? From human 1.0 to human 10.0.
Right.
And that's that. You said something really important. It's this is we must go higher.
Yes.
Right? We have to, because 95% of people out there are operating in like unconscious state, right? They're just going through the motions, right? They're just showing up every day doing the same thing, hoping for something different. And what we have to do is we have to take that first step, that first initial step to jump into the land of the unknown, like the hero's journey. We talk about that in the movie, right? In VUCA.
Right.
We talk about the hero's journey where, you know, the hero might not even know they're a hero, but they get a sense of a higher calling. And I think every human on the planet has some sort of sense of higher calling. It's just they oftentimes ignore it. They say, well, I can't do that, or I won't do that, or I don't have the capacity or the willpower or whatever.
Well, I'm not good enough.
The truth is, I believe that they do.
Yeah.
They just have to take that first step. And the first step could be like, I'm going to write it down. And people are like, really, that simple? I'm like, it could be that simple. Like it could be, you don't have to like build the rocket ship in one day. It can be, I need to write this down. And then the next day you visit it, you look at it and you're like, oh my God, this is so scary. But what is the one thing I can do that would move this forward? Well, maybe I'll do a little research on this. Oh, good. What are we doing? We're just taking baby steps, right? And that's how you break through. It's the same when people are struggling with what they eat. Right? They're like, well, Mike, how do I change that? I go, it's simple. Just make a decision tonight not to eat after 8.
Right.
Start
yes.
there.
Yes.
Well, what about the food? Don't worry about the food, right? Just make a decision. No matter what, I'm not going to eat after 8.
Right.
Now tomorrow, maybe we can tackle something different. Right?
Yes.
So
absolutely.
That first step, and I think that's the same with faith, Nigel. Like if we look at AI and we look at our faith operates the same way. Faith can simply be, you know what? I'm going to dust off my Bible. You know what I'm saying? Because most people have a Bible, but it's on the shelf and they haven't opened it up. So that's
in years, probably.
Right? So yeah,
probably in years. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just going to pull it out. I'm going to dust it off. That's all I'm going to do today. And tomorrow I'm going to open it up. And that it's just the baby steps. And this is where faith kind of flips your brain from panic to possibility. I truly believe that. And that's why I believe that faith is so important.
Right. We talked about decisions. We're making decisions all the time. And there's a lot of emotion in decision making. And one of the things that is characteristic of us as humans is we're empathetic. And so almost intuitively, if we're going to need to make these decisions, which are empathetic, we're going to be accessing these higher capabilities that we have. And so that segues us nicely into something I wanted to ask you on behalf of our audience is, Mike, what's the first step? How do we get there? You mentioned the line a few minutes ago. I know what that is, but maybe a lot of people don't. So share a little bit about how we find out about ourselves and how we position ourselves on the line, as you called it. So that at some point we're going to be facing things that we don't really like. And so we have to gain confidence. We have to gain the will to do something. So explain that a little bit for us, please.
Yeah. I think so. We call it are you, when we ask people, are you above or below the line? And I even have that on my mirror. Am I above or below the line? And what we mean by that, so VUCA is a term that came out of, the Army War College, about 87 to 89, when the Soviet Union was crashing and technology was emerging. And, the Army loves their acronyms, and Bemis and Namus, who were leadership experts at the time, worked with the War College, and they came up with VUCA, standing for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, because the world was a mess. It was on fire. And didn't we just say, Nigel, that the world is still on fire, right? Probably exponentially so because of the use of technology and immediate information and brain overload. And so VUCA is what we call the negative piece: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. So if somebody got an 8.5, 11 sheet of paper out and they just drew a line right down the middle, I'd put the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity on the bottom. Okay. These are the things that pull you into victim mode or reactive mode. Okay. These are how most people operate. This is honestly probably about 85, if not 90% of the population operates here. Is everything is a crisis, or they're living in chaos. What's interesting is when you look at the data, what really moves people forward is what we call a moonshot. Okay. And that is something bigger than their crisis. So in the therapy world, in order to move you from a 5 to a 6, all I have to do is find out the first step that's going to motivate you to move forward. Okay. That could be a very big move shot. Meaning, you know what, Mike, my life is a wreck. And I might ask, okay, great, I got it. So let me ask you a question. I mean, when you get out of bed, what do you do in the morning? Well, I just kind of start my day. I get on my phone right away. I do all these things. I'm like, would you make your bed? No, I don't make my bed. Okay, well, all I want you to do tomorrow is when you get out of bed is make the bed. Okay, that could be the first initial moonshot. It seems small, but to that person is really big. And so this is what we call flipping the script. And that's the positive side of VUCA, which is vision, understanding, clarity, and adaptability. So let me walk you through that. That is the victor or the hero's mindset. Okay, vision. What's the vision for your life? What is it? Right. And some people will go, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, well, we're going to discover that together. We're going to go on a journey. We're going to discover that. And through that, we're going to gain an understanding of who you are. Right? Right. And what it means to be you. And from that, we'll have clarity when we face negative VUCA, because now we know who we are. We know where we're going. Okay. That offers huge clarity. And clarity I break down into mind, body, spirit, relationships, and finances. And we define what those are in your life. That's how you gain clarity. Okay. And then what happens is you're able to adapt. Okay. So when you face situations, because you know where you're going, you know who you are, you know what it means to have the 8s in your life. I call them the 8s, defining the 8s in your mind, body, spirit, relationships, and finances, that you can adapt when negative situations, when those situations that I call, wow, this is such a gift situation, you can adapt because you know where you're going, you know who you are, you know what it means to be you. That's where we flip the script. And so when I ask people, where are you on the line, personally, professionally, if they've got that rubric essentially to operate from, they can go, you know what, I'm operating below the line on this. And now it's easier for me as a mentor and a guide to say, well, great, now we're going to flip the script. We're going to figure how to get you above the line on this. Right. Does that make sense? And I'm going to turn on the light here because I'm really hot this way. Like I look like an angel if I face this way. So I'm
getting a glow around you.
Yeah, but I'm definitely hot. Yeah, for sure. So
that's all right. That's all right. I'm freezing cold here. It's 32 degrees outside, and it's nice, about 75 degrees in here. So it's nice. It's just another reason why I decided to do this from my residence here today. I didn't want to disappoint. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. So, so we talk a lot about resilience, and so you talked about the line. Share a little bit more about, we have a term which we share with people all the time. We talk about resilience, and then we've introduced this concept of you need to be anti-fragile. So explain that in terms of the line tool, Mike, because I think that's to me, it's a base tool, it's a base concept. And if you can get your head around that, then it enables you to think about accessing these higher cognitive capabilities, which are the things that we really want, because that's going to get us into creative mode. And that will segue me into asking you the next question I want to ask you.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you about, I'll lead you into, so share, once you've explained anti-fragility, show us the path to get us into that state that we call flow, because that's the path, that's the super highway to our creativity piece.
Yeah. So whether there's really kind of three states that we operate in, right? And fragile is where most people operate. They're fragile, right? They're in a reactive state. They're in an unconscious state. They're, reactive, overwhelmed, in chaos, survival mode. That most people are operating in a fragile state. And then so we, for years we talked about, okay, well, you got to build resilience. And resilience is like the tennis ball, right? Where you smash against the ground, but you bounce back up and you're still whole, who you were before. Okay, so you're bouncing back to your original state. That's being resilient. The challenge is in today's environment, in this VUCA environment that we live in, where things are rapidly changing so fast, we can't bounce back and still operate in our original state, because life has moved ahead.
Move forward. Yeah.
Right. And so if you bounce back to your original state, you're still behind, and now you're probably going to be back in a fragile state. So anti-fragility really is the ability to bounce back and adapt quickly in a fast-moving, changing environment. And that is really about mindset. That again, that is clarity under pressure. That is faith. Okay. Again, that's why faith is so important, is because when we do emerge again, we're like, listen, I just got through the crisis. The whole world's changed, and now I have to adapt again. Yes, you do. And that's why the foundation has to be faith. Okay. Faith that I'm going to survive the storm no matter what. Right. And so that's where flow starts to operate, is once we develop the mindset of I'm a VUCA warrior. Okay. That I'm clear on where I'm going. I'm clear on who I am. I'm clear on what it means to be me. Okay, no matter the storm, I'm not affected by my circumstances. Okay. And that's why I say, when the vision is big, Nigel, the circumstances don't matter. That's why vision has to be so big.
Yes.
Right? It's got to be huge, because I've dealt with crisis. I think every leader, every person's dealt with some form of crisis, and we learn and we grow and we emerge through it. So we have to determine, is the crisis going to overtake me, or am I going to be like Luke Skywalker, stuck in the swamp, trying to get, my X-wing or whatever they call that thing out of the swamp, right? And I'm struggling and I'm fighting, and he does it. He eventually does it, and it's not easy, and the journey's not going to be easy for most. But we need to understand that he was bouncing back into a new person. And that's what anti-fragility that's where we access our best ideas, is when we're having to be agile. When we go, you know what? I'm going to get into the zone. I know exactly what my moonshot is, and I'm going to focus on the moonshot. No matter the circumstances, I'm going to think about, how do I get through that circumstance? Not, oh, woe is me, the circumstances hitting me in the face.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. I try to approach this way. Let's see. I know we should be on the same page, but I always tell people, look, if you bounce back to where you thought you were, the train has already left the station, and so now you're going to be
100%.
You're going to be landing on the tracks and watching the train, waving at the train going away. So I always tell people that what anti-fragility is like bouncing forward, because you have to bounce forward almost into a space that at the time you fall off the train doesn't exist yet. But it's almost like you have to hit a spring and then bounce forward, as you say, to adapt to the new circumstances.
100%. It's a great way.
You only get there by accessing new capabilities, which previously, as you fell off the train, you didn't have access to. And once you get into that, once you access that provides, if you like, the spring or the forward force, because you're now in flow, and it allows you to get on to catapult forward. It's like you hit what were those power balls? You hit the thing, and the second bounce, shoots you much further forward, and you could almost jump on the front of the train there.
Yeah, that's right. No, you're talking about being future ready, right? So when you fall, how do you bounce back and still be future ready, right? Yeah. So I love your analogy, because it's really like, the tennis ball rolls off the back of the train, right? Yeah. Now, if it just bounced straight back up, it missed the train. So what you're talking about is, nope, it rolled off the train. It bounces forward because you've done the work. You're working through human 1.0, human 2.0, human 3.0, human, right? And that is your springboard that pops you back onto the top of the train, right? But if you don't do any work, right, you continue to roll off, where eventually you're going to roll off the caboose again, right? And that, I think, is the important. I love that analogy, Nigel, because what it says is, if you do the work, okay, you'll bounce and spring forward. You'll hit the top of the train. Keep doing the work. Sometimes you'll roll back a little bit, but if you keep doing the work, you'll maintain and maybe even push forward and roll forward, despite the fact that the train's moving backwards. Is you could roll forward, and that requires mentorship. That requires dedication, discipline. I love that analogy. I might actually steal that analogy from you. It's so good. Yeah.
So let's try to connect those two pieces. Let's try to connect the idea of anti-fragility on the line and what have you, and the fact that we're now moving into a flow which is bouncing us forward. We're talking neurochemistry. We're talking about what is happening in the brain for us to be able to switch that on. And we know that the things that push us forward, we know the dopamine chemicals in our brain. So we do something and it kicks and it gives us that impetus. And if we hit it again, it'll give us another impetus. And we can hit it again and it will literally move us up. So what are the things, share with us how we get those? I mean, I know you call them the plus ones. I always just call them the dopa hits. Explain in practical terms, Mike, how somebody listening to this would say, okay, I think I get what these guys are saying. How do I do that in practice? How do I shift myself, from the negative side, the fragile side? How do I supercharge myself along that horizontal plane, so I'm an 8 or a 9 anti-fragile, which now gives me the capability to be able to access this good stuff where I want to be, which is giving me new powers. It's giving me, it's giving me those incredible options, which to the average person are just not available.
It's a secret that I'm going to share. Okay, this is how you'd move. So in the military, we call it moving off the X, right? Like you're stuck, and now you got to move off the X, because if you stay there, you'll die. So if you move off the X, it's like, what is the one thing I can do right now that will move me forward? Oh boy, this could be pretty big, right? Because there might be things flying in my head. There might be, chaos around me. And so all I got to do is do that next one thing. Okay, I do the next one thing, I survived. That's a dopamine hit. Okay, so here's really what it is sticky pads. See these, right? I tell people here, if you really want to do something that will give you the dopamine hits that you can visually see, because we're still tactile, right? What I say is, instead of putting your master list to-do list together, which could be really overwhelming, you know what I'm saying? Like people start to do a vision board and it becomes really overwhelming. As I say, put just one thing on a sticky note, okay? I'll do it. Make my bed. Okay? And go into some place, okay? Whether it's your office, okay? You got a sticky note up there. You might have to zoom in to see that, okay? Make my bed. Drink 80 ounces of water. Okay? Put that up on there. And before you know it, I think you get the pictures. Before you know it, you got a drawer full of sticky notes. Okay? So what you do is you go in the next day. Okay? You go in the next day and you walk in and you go, today, I'm going to make my bed. You go make the bed. is throw that sticky note away. That's an immediate dopamine hit because your body and your mind is so used to performing tasks. Okay, that's where the dopamine hits happen. Okay, is doing the one thing. And so you remove that sticky note. And then you might be so pumped at that point that you go in and you go, you know what? That was pretty easy. So today I'm going to drink 80 ounces of water. And you get done. And by the end of the day, you go, you know what? I accomplished that too. And you throw that one away. And so every day you just start putting these sticky notes up. Okay. Or you could do it on a Saturday. You create your vision and you go, okay, this is what's going to get me to my vision. Okay. So you've got your master vision up there and then you create the sticky notes. And the reason I say sticky notes are so powerful, Nigel, is because with a list, oftentimes when we see this, is people can get overwhelmed because there's too many things on their list and they don't know where to start. But with sticky notes, each one is individual. And all they need to do is pull that off and take it on. Make sense? So it's really kind of the practice, even in boot camp, whereas I remember the first day of boot camp, I said, you know, it was like, okay, you got to run a mile in 10 minutes and you got to do 10 push-ups and 10 sit-ups and whatever, right? And some people couldn't do it and some people could just nail it. And then the next day it'd be, we're going to do 12 and then it'd be 14 and 25. And you just need to elevate yourself. That's how we move through the human 1.0 to human 10.0. Is every time we just elevate it just a little bit more. But that's the practical, tactical way of getting the dopamine hits and getting closer to your vision.
Right. I see that, and I think I hope that that's clear to everybody. I really I'm really sort of empowered to implore people to give this a try. It almost seems too simple to be workable, but as we know, that acronym, it's the KISS principle: keep it simple, stupid. You know, I mean, I learned that very, very often. And again, as a process person, if you trust the process, it will take you from, being in the pits to the promised land, so to speak, in spiritual terms. So I think, I always talk about, what's your emerald city? Because, we have to construct the yellow brick road together to get us to the emerald city. You talked about the moonshot. I mean, do we need a moonshot to get us to the Emerald City, or to get us to the point where we can walk down the yellow brick road together? Who are the guides along the way? Do we need the lion, the tin man, the straw man? You mentioned mentoring. I think that is a fundamental part of this. I think that we're stuck in this mindset that we have to do everything alone. Myself, I probably have 4 or 5 different mentors or coaches in various sort of forms and guises. I'm sure that's true for you. And
I have my 5. Yeah,
the circles that we work in. I want to stress to people that is really important. People say here all the time, well, I can get all this information, I can get all your stuff off YouTube, off this. Where the rubber meets the road, though, is when it gets personal. When you're looking into the other person's eyes, like we're doing now, you can't con me and I can't con you. You're going to find me out. Right. It's called accountability, isn't it?
That's right.
And so
that's right.
When we set these principles in place, what we need, the other side of it, is we need that accountability mentor or coach to hold our feet to the fire. That's going to say, 100%. Hey, come on, Nigel. Come on, Mike. You said you were going to do this. Are you committed, or do you only do these things when it's convenient, or when you're interested? I talked to somebody again this morning about that same issue. Are you really committed to doing this? Because to come back to the point you just shared with us about making the bed. I can tell you, when I got remarried, which is nearly 4 years ago now, Eddie, as I shared with you, is from South America. She's from Colombia. And the first thing that she does when she gets out of bed is she makes the bed. Now, did Nigel make the bed? At some point in the day, but I didn't get out of bed and make the bed. What do you think I do now?
That's right.
Bed. There are a few moments. Right. There are a few occasions. Why? Because I bought into that as a concept. It sets the tone. And I think that that's important. You have to initiate this process somewhere. And unless you take the first step, you can't. It's like building a wall. And unless you put the foundations in right, and unless you put that first layer of bricks right, by the time you get to 9 and 10 bricks, the whole thing's going to cave in on yourself, because that's everything builds in a logical way, doesn't it?
That's right. 100%. Well, I think and I want to build on that point, Nigel. I mean, really, because you said something really important. You said mentorship is so important. Why do people need coaching or mentorship or training or anything along that line? And it's very clear, because when you look at the pyramid, or I'll call it the pyramid of the A's, okay, there's 4 A's, right? There's awareness. Okay, that's moving from an unconscious state to a conscious state. Then there's acknowledgement. So that is first is, oh, you know what? I got to name the issue that I'm dealing with. Okay. I'm feeling down, depressed, whatever. I'm feeling below the line. Okay. That's an awareness factor. Then you acknowledge, okay, yep, that's where I'm at. Okay. There's no shame or guilt in that. And you go, well, I'm going to put an action plan together to get out of it. I'm going to work to flip my script, right? So now I have an action plan. And they put an action plan together, and then they sit there. Right? That's usually what happens if people try to do it on their own. Okay, unless they're incredibly disciplined, which is about 5 to 10% of the population. And so the 4th A is accountability.
Right.
Who do you have in your life that's going to hold you accountable? Yeah. Some people will say, well, I'll be able to hold myself accountable. And I'm like, well, has that worked for you so far? Well, no. Okay, so let's go on the journey together. Okay, and I think that's the piece that people miss, is the accountability piece. And I just want to praise you for bringing that up, because it's so important, especially in these type of environments.
It is, I think. And you know, the thing that I always come back to is, I remember learning this a long time ago, never leave the sight of the change that you want to make without doing something that's going to move the ball forward slightly.
Yeah.
As you pointed out, whether it's making your bed, sticking a sticky on a wall that's going to commit you to what you're going to do tomorrow, it doesn't matter. It's setting up a sequence in your brain.
That's right.
That then you want to build on and build this wall, as I just described. So as we get towards the end of this fascinating discussion I'm having with you, I want to ask you, one of the things I like to ask guests to share their wisdom over is, I'm always intrigued at the answers I get for this, but if you could go back to your 20-year-old self, Mike, seeing and understanding a lifetime or a half a lifetime of the experiences that you had, given this exponential VUCA environment, which is probably going to go even crazier than it is right now, what's one thing that you would say to your 20-year-old Mike Schindler?
To a 20-year-old Mike Schindler, there's one gap you need to pay attention to. That's what I'd tell myself. There's one gap, and that gap is your relationship with God. Because if that is firm, if that is solid, then a lot of other things take care of themselves. And I could say faith plus neuroscience, and yes, would I save more? Sure. Would I say, be sure that you're saving $30 a month? Of course I'd say that. But if I really had paid attention, okay, I wouldn't have made some erratic decisions, between 20 and 55. I would have been more grounded. I probably would have been more calm. I would have been more disciplined, because I would have said, this is my foundation. And if my foundation is strong, then everything else will start to backfill. And so I would say, for those that are feeling stuck or scattered or drained or broken or any of that, I would say that you're not broken. What you need to do is just kind of take a step back and go, to your point, what is the foundation I need to anchor my life in? And fortunately, you can start today, right? You don't have to regret that you didn't do it 35 years ago, right? You can say, no, you know what? Today I'm going to start. I'm going to put I'm going to put that sticky note up on the board.
Right. And that it is irrespective of what religion you have, be it Christianity, Judaism, Muslim, or anybody else for that matter. So it's or Hindu, for example. It's what your faith is. A lot of these things were grounded from a similar place, that there is a higher order, and I think that is great advice. Mike, people will want to find you. They'll want to probably reach out and say, I want more of this Mike Schindler guy. Where can we find you?
Well, you can for sure find me on, LinkedIn. Just look for Mike Schindler on LinkedIn. You'll find me. It's VUCAMAX.com is our website. Michael-J-Schindler on Instagram. Just Google. If you see the guy with glasses with a little bit of hair, that's probably me, and the beard. It depends on what photos floating around out there. But I would just recommend, if people want to see the film, they can see that too. They just go to itsvuca.com and they can find a way to stream that film there. But and sometimes, Nigel, if I really like the host, I give out my phone number, and I'll do that for your audience, which is 206-795-5890. And it's interesting, I've been doing that for about 10 years as well, giving out my phone number, and rarely do people reach out because they think, gosh, that person is not attainable. And I will tell you that no matter the victories, the movies, the books that I have, that my job on earth, I truly believe it, is to impact the human, is to add value to people's lives. And the only way I can do that is if I know they want to talk. Right. So,
and you're certainly doing that, Mike. And you've honored me today by coming on my fledgling podcast,
I love it,
Unshakable Voice podcast. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I can't wait to see the reaction from this, and we've got to do this again sometime.
We'll do it, my friend. As always, good to see you, Nigel.
Thank you so much, my friend.